Hi everybody, this is another video. I've been working on a different topic, but it's been taking a while, so I decided to go on something that I was still passionate about and discuss it here. For today's video, I want to talk about writing, specifically writing yourself. I went to film school, and I still write. I like to read a lot of scripts, and I'm obviously inspired by a lot of scripts. A huge issue I realized that happened with a lot of scripts, both in film school and out of film school, was that people would write themselves. Now, I realized that technically we're always writing ourselves, right? You write the way you speak, your mannerisms, your view in the world, etc. But, of course, every writer's gonna have their own style and their own voice. That's fine. I have no problem with your own style and voice. My issue is when you write yourself and you write a story that's just obviously your life. Now, I know this might rub some people the wrong way. That's fine. But hear me out. My issue is when you write a script and it's just a life story that occurred to you and you are just redoing this life story. Your friends and your loved ones and people that are real and in your life. The event is something that's usually fairly mundane, and I have many issues with this type of storytelling. My first issue is the characters of the story. So I've noticed in stories and scripts, when people tend to write people they know, they usually tend to do a worse job. It's usually common that despite the people being real, and despite you knowing these people very well, it's hard to give them the same level that you would give characters. Since the character's mind is from your mind, it's very easy to flesh them out. But by trying to replicate the minds of people you know, and since you can't go directly into their minds, it makes it pretty much impossible for them to be as fleshed out as a fictional character from your own brain. And then on the reverse side of this, the character that is you tends to be very amazing. Now, what I mean by that is, of course, they'll have a flaw, but the flaw will be something that, though isn't good, is something that isn't super bad either, or something very small. When you write yourself, you're still the good character. You're still smart, funny, kind. In general, you tend to make the you character the best. Just a really great person. And people tend to make the everybody else characters shitty, flat, boring, and just not particularly interesting to follow. Besides characters, I think the plot tends to not be super interesting either. Since we live in real life, things take a very long time, and life doesn't usually have payoff or climax, or even super intriguing moments constantly. Most people aren't that interesting. Film characters can be. In a film, every character could be interesting, but in real life, most people are boring as hell. So when you write a real life story, the plot tends to be boring as hell. My final complaint is that it's either just the writer feeling bad for themselves, or some sort of fantasy that they couldn't live out in their real lives. So in the stories when the writers feel bad for themselves, it's just depressing. It's just how awful the rest of the world is, and don't you feel bad for this character? Isn't it really fucked up what they're going through? And when it's a fantasy, it's just weird usually. It's just them impressing their parents. They're getting that person they found attractive, and that person regrets leaving them. It's just weird shit, and I think both cases just kind of suck. Now, I'll offer an alternative, and this is something that I've practiced in my writing to make it interesting, because I still think that who you are as a writer and as a person should be put in your scripts. I think that's great. I think our experiences are valuable and our emotions are important, but I think that using fiction is helpful. Now, this isn't to say you have to make them fantastical or to make them otherworldly. They could be very, very common. But I would recommend not making it based off your real life experience with that person. I believe it's a better idea to go for the feelings that you had during that experience, the emotions that you were going through while that was happening. So whenever I want to talk about what it was like growing up with my friends, there are plenty of stories I have where I'm able to go through friendship. I've never written a moment I had with my friends before, but I know how it feels. And I've written stories replicating those emotions. The love, the camaraderie, the pain, ups and downs of friendship, the excitement of experiencing something and then sharing it with your friends the next day. Being able to tell them what happened, just to hear their funny take on it. Like, that's a very specific moment, and that's a very specific emotion. It's the same thing with heartbreak, or your relationship with your parents, or anything. There's an emotion that you have. So it's not to say that the story itself has to be completely different. It doesn't have to be a complete new story. And it doesn't have to be fantastical. But it should not be the retelling of how your mom and you don't talk. That shouldn't be for the scripts. That should be for your therapist. I realize this may sound harsh, but I really mean it. It's going to be too difficult for you to be able to be objective. For the sake of yourself and for the sake of the audience and for people who have to read scripts, I would highly recommend focusing on the emotions, because the emotions is where the story is. Even though my father never cut off my arm and became a Sith Lord, I know what it's like to struggle with your father. All those things are able to be told through film in a much more elegant, entertaining, and fair and objective way. So that's just my 2-piece. People could listen to it or not, it's okay. I'm aware that there are good examples of movies where the writer is just themselves, but in general, I do think that people should try to stray away from this. I think in general, even the good films that have been made from that do have a lot of the issues I've brought up before. Thanks for listening. I'll see you guys next time.